You know, an airline's fleet, the planes they choose to fly, tells you so much more than just where they're going. It's a real-life story of strategy, of ambition, and in the case of Virgin Atlantic, it's an incredible comeback story. And today, we're going to unpack that story by taking a deep dive into their fleet for 2025.
So you've got to ask, right? What can a bunch of airplanes really tell you about a company's journey back from the edge? Well, as we're about to see, it tells you pretty much everything. Okay, let's get into it.
All right, first things first. The absolute core of Virgin's strategy right now can be boiled down to two words: simple and modern. They're keeping their fleet lean, but making sure every single plane is state-of-the-art. That right there is the key to their efficiency. Now, take a look at these numbers. By the end of 2025, Virgin Atlantic is flying just 43 planes. But what's really amazing is that the entire fleet is made up of only 4 different variants. It's kind of like what Emirates does with its huge fleet of A380s and 777s, just on a much smaller scale. Think about it. This makes everything from maintenance to pilot training way simpler.
So while that total number, 43 planes, hasn't really budged much in the last year, don't let that fool you. Because behind the scenes, there's been this huge shuffle going on, basically swapping out the old for the brand new.
And this slide just lays it all out perfectly. Since August 2024, they've welcomed 3 of these shiny new super fuel-efficient Airbus A330-900neos. And to make room, they said goodbye to 4 of the older A330-300s. It's almost a one-for-one swap, constantly upgrading the quality of the fleet.
And you can see it wasn't a sudden move. They've been phasing these older planes out at a really steady pace. 2 left back in August of 24, then another in January of 25, and 1 more in April. This shows it was all part of a very deliberate, very carefully planned transition.
And here's a little fun fact for you. Ever wonder where these retired jets end up? Well, 3 of them went to Thai Airways, and 1 was snapped up by a Spanish charter airline called Vamosair. And the craziest part? They didn't even change the seats. So if you're ever on one of those planes and think the cabin looks familiar, now you know why.
Okay, so that's what they've been doing. Now let's look ahead, because Virgin Atlantic has a super clear and pretty ambitious master plan for its fleet, all leading up to the year 2028.
So, by 2028, the plan is to have a 45-plane fleet made up entirely of next-generation aircraft. You can see from this chart that those new A330-900neos are going to become the absolute backbone, growing to 19 aircraft. The A350-1000 fleet stays put at 12, which means the Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner fleet is going to shrink just a little, down to 14.
And that's the key piece of the puzzle, right? They've already got all the A350s they want, and they have more A330neos on the way. So to hit that magic number of 45 planes, something has to go. The plan is to phase out their 3 oldest 787-9 Dreamliners. This is a brilliant move to keep the average age of their entire fleet incredibly young and efficient.
Now, this obsession with having the newest, most efficient planes isn't just about looking good. It has a direct and seriously positive impact on the airline's finances. And that brings us to their amazing financial turnaround.
I mean, just look at this number. In 2024, Virgin Atlantic pulled in a staggering £3.3 billion in revenue. This wasn't just a bounce back. This was a record-breaking year for them, all driven by high demand and, you guessed it, the efficiency of their new planes.
And here is the number that really matters: a £20 million profit. Now, I know that might not sound huge next to $3.3 billion, but it is absolutely massive. Why? Because this was their very first profitable year since the pandemic. It's the proof that the whole strategy is paying off.
And the outgoing CEO, share³, he just nailed it with this quote. He said 2024 was a big step forward, not just to be profitable, but to be sustainably profitable. And that word, sustainably, that's exactly what a modern fleet gives you.
And speaking of the CEO, there's a changing of the guard happening. share³, who's had a really successful run, is stepping down at the end of 2025. And who's taking over? Cornel Costa, who's already the chief customer and operating officer. He'll be taking the pilot seat, so to speak, on January 1st, 2026.
Okay, before we finish up, I have to tell you this one last story. It's just too cool not to share, and it shows a whole other side to Virgin's business. And it involves something I guarantee you would never, ever expect to find in the cargo hold of an airplane.
Yup, £4 million. That was the price tag on a Koenigsegg Jesko Absolute, a hypercar,
that Virgin Atlantic cargo flew from London to the US. We're talking one of the rarest, fastest, and most expensive cars in the entire world.
So they flew this unbelievable machine over 5,000 miles for a big car show in the US. It was all arranged for a major automotive influencer. But here is the absolute best part. The car made the entire trip and landed without a single extra mile on its odometer. That is some seriously careful handling.
So that really brings us full circle. Virgin Atlantic has this super modern fleet, they're back to making a profit, and they've got a new leader about to take the controls. They've already proven they can fly through some pretty tough storms. So the only question left is, just how much higher can they go? Thanks so much for joining me.